Hello everyone, this is Hank. I'm back. This is the second installment of the series that I just recently started. I call it EOS RP for Beginners. So the last one we talked about Scene Intelligent Auto. You can look up my video for that. So we talked about that in detail. Today we are going to talk about a special scene mode in portrait mode. Okay, so on the mode dial right now I'm on the A+, green A+. You go down one to the SCN mode, and that's a special scene, and then you press OK to go into scene mode. And today we are going to talk about the portrait mode only. Out of this we are going to discuss other modes in subsequent videos. Okay, so today we're going to talk about portrait. Before we do that, let me go back. Okay, if you read the instructions, sometimes it will help you. So this portrait mode, okay, it said backgrounds are blurred, subjects stand out, smooth skin tone and hair. Okay, so it seems like it does 4 things for you, correct? Okay, so you press OK. So basically the camera is going to take care of this automatically for you. And how is it going to do it? So to make the subject stand out and the background blur, it will do one thing. To make the skin and the hair smooth, it will do another thing. So let's talk about the less important part, which is making the hair and the skin smoother. It does that by going into the picture contrast and clarity, and it changed the clarity and the contrast, make it softer. So basically it will solve that for you by doing that. Okay. Now mind you that it only works if you set the picture mode to JPEG. If you set it to RAW, that is not going to be effective. Okay. And it will tell you that. Okay, so it does that. Okay, now the other part that it does that is going to make the background more blurred and the subject stand out by changing the aperture value to a smaller value. Open the opening wider. When it set the value to smaller, the relationship is opposite. When you set the aperture value small, the opening is going to be bigger and it will make the background more blurred. And that is what the camera is going to do for you. Okay, so now if I press the shutter button halfway, it will show me 1/100 of a second, f2.8, ISO 800. That is the setting the camera is going to set for you automatically. And let's explore that very quickly and see what it means. Okay, mind you, I'm using a lens called the 50mm f1.8. And this is what they affectionately call Nifty 50. Probably heard of that term. It's a really good lens for the money. And it's capable of going to aperture value of 1.8. Okay. Now, again, let's look at the numbers and see what it means, okay? 1/100 is the shutter speed, and it sets the rule of thumb. Later, when you use the manual mode, and you will need to learn this rule of thumb. If this means nothing to you, don't worry, but I'm going to mention it anyway. The rule of thumb is that you got to do a 1 over the focal length as a minimum to prevent shaking by holding it, hand holding it. Okay, so the minimum speed here you got to set for a 50mm lens would be 1 over 50 or 1 over 60. So that means that when you're hand holding it, it won't be blurred. Okay. The camera is more conservative. It's set to 1/100, which is faster. So that's a safe speed for it. And if you wonder why it's set to 1/100, that's why. It's set to a safe speed so that you can handhold it safely. Now, on the Aperture, which is the second one, f2.8, it sets it to a lower number. It doesn't set it to the lowest number, which is 1.8, because it's conservative. It makes sure that everything is in focus that you care about, which is the face. And it set it to 2.8, which is safer than 1.8, and later we'll explain it. Not in this video, but later in other videos, it'll become apparent to you. Right now, it's set to 2.8 so that the background is going to be blurred because it is a smaller enough value. Make the background blur. So that is what it's doing for you. So the camera is pretty smart. It's set to 1/100 f2.8, and the ISO value is whatever it is that it thinks that you have the correct exposure. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so at this point, you can stop the video now, and I'm going to talk about a couple more things. Okay, the important thing is that right now everything is automatic, except that the camera will allow you one thing that is not automatic. And if you press the set button, okay, then you can move this thing around until you go all the way to the other side there. And as you see, it's set adjust image brightness. So in cases that the camera is fooled by the lighting conditions, like say the background is too bright, background too dark, it might get fooled and give you a picture less than optimum. What does that mean? That means that it gives you a picture either too dark or too bright. Right now, though, in my example, it's perfect, right? But let's assume that you think this is too dark. You can move it to the right to make the picture brighter yourself, right? So this is your manual control that it will allow you to do. Or if the picture you think is too bright, you can go to the left, make it darker. Okay, so that way you can control. And what do you care about this picture? The face, right? Because it's portrait, right? So you make sure the face is not too bright or not too dark by varying this one. Right? Okay, so that is basically what you want to do. Let's stop here, and we'll talk more about the settings later in other episodes. So I would appreciate if you like this picture and or subscribe if you haven't. That would always make me happy. Thank you so much. See you in another episode.